Apologies for only doing one episode last week. We're back to our normal schedule, so it's time for your regular midweek update on what's been happening in the world of video games. Hi, I'm Prob, and welcome to News Trash here on the Geek Show, your regular look at the interesting things that have been happening in the world of video games over the last few days. So 2021 is coming to an end in a few weeks, and it's been an interesting end of year. Normally things start slowing down, but because certain companies have been behaving the way they have historically, the news doesn't seem to have slowed down. So we're going to start, as always, with the bad stuff. And as has become a habit, we're starting off with Activision Blizzard. So what's been happening over with them? Well, according to the Washington Post, Activision Blizzard have laid off a number of contractors from Raven Software, the studio that produces Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War and Call of Duty Warzone. Now, Activision Blizzard had a meeting with the contractors from Friday, December the 3rd to December the 8th. And during that meeting, the contractors were told whether they would be terminated or promoted. Naturally, a number of the contractors who were told they'd be terminated felt hurt and betrayed, some of them even stating as much to the Washington Post. According to one QA tester from Raven Software, the project lead was kept in the dark about the layoffs. He goes on to say, "Our team is destroyed and absolutely no one is going to want to work even if they got promoted." He does also state that he was looking to leave because of the reputation Activision has had lately, and he doesn't want to support the company any longer. It's an embarrassment to work for Activision Blizzard, in his opinion. Now, the decision to lay off QA contractors from Raven Software has led to several repercussions which, you could have kind of predicted, but for some reason Activision continue to turn a blind eye to what goes on in their own backyard. So after a number of the layoffs were announced, the staff at Raven Software also announced that in response to the events on Friday, the 3rd of December, the Raven QA team and other members of Raven's staff will be walking out with a singular demand. Every member of the QA team, including those terminated on Friday, must be offered full-time positions. The Raven QA department is essential to the day-to-day functioning of the studio as a whole. Terminating the contracts of high-performing testers in a time of consistent work and profit puts the health of the studio at risk. The statement goes on to say, additionally, these actions go directly against the positive culture that Raven has created over the years. The end goal of this walkout is to ensure the continued growth of Raven as a studio and to foster a positive community for everyone who works there. So that walkout happened, but they weren't the only ones to walk out, because the ABK Workers Alliance at Activision Blizzard proper have also announced that they will be walking out as well in protest over the layoffs at Raven Software. According to a statement from the ABK Workers Alliance, this team was told multiple times by Raven leadership that there were positive departmental changes coming. These upcoming changes were also used as the reason why no member of the team received standard promotions or raises that were meant to be in place by March of 2021. Every member of the QA team, including those terminated on Friday, must be offered full-time positions. Those participating in this demonstration do so with the continued success of the studio at the forefront of their mind. Now, there is a response from Activision Blizzard about the whole walkout thing. A spokesperson has spoken to Polygon and said Activision Publishing is growing its overall investment in its development and operations resources. We are converting approximately 500 temporary workers into full-time employees in the coming months. Unfortunately, as part of this change, we also have notified 20 temporary workers across the studios that their contracts would not be extended. This whole thing is the latest example of friction between Activision Blizzard at the top and the actual people who do the work. And I can kind of understand from the corporate perspective, when there's any kind of corporate restructuring, some people may or may not lose their jobs. Some. It should only ever be a small number, and they should be good, valid reasons for them. If they are performing their work well, why would you lay them off? None of the people who were laid off at Raven Software had any bad records or anything like that. There was no reason to lay them off. Not only that, and this is the bit that I don't really understand, November, Activision Blizzard had their quarterly earnings call, and they announced that they had made over $2 billion in revenue over the last 3 months. Now, if you factor in running costs of the business, staff wages, all sorts of stuff like that, you still should have X amount of cash left, X million dollars left, probably a couple of $100 million left per month. Some of that could have gone to paying these contractors' wages, bringing them up to parity so they'd be full-time employees, and they could continue working. Or is anyone going to tell me that Activision Blizzard spends $666 million per month, so all of it is used up? Because that would be bullshit. When a company makes an announcement that they've made so many billions in revenue, and yet there's still layoffs. That's exactly the same as Bobby Kotick saying, hey, I'm going to pay myself $150 million, but my employees won't get a pay rise. So, yeah, I can understand why so many staff have walked out in protest at the layoffs over at Raven Software. And you got QA testers from California, Texas, Minnesota. They've all joined in with the protest. And you can kind of understand their point of view. Anyway, moving from one company that's not doing too well with their public image to another company that's not doing too well with their public image. The head of HR, Annika Grant at Ubisoft, has been talking to Axios, and in an interview she addressed complaints levied by multiple employees who reported incidents to the publisher using its own official channels, but were given little to no information about what was done with those reports. Now, this is one of those ongoing issues that we've seen with studios. It's not hit Ubisoft as hard as it's hit Activision Blizzard, but it's still pretty bad. According to what Annika Grant has said in the interview, Ubisoft spent a lot of time making sure they had the right processes in place at the start of their crisis, but they basically forgot to communicate with the employees who were actually lodging the complaints. And that lack of communication meant that the people who were filing the complaints had no clue what was going on and felt more hurt, more scared, more confused. She goes on to say in that interview with Axios that Ubisoft as a company is 100% focused on fixing its communication issues with those who report incidents, but when she was asked if that meant the company would go back to previous complaints and follow up with the reporting parties, she responded that their focus should really be moving forwards, which I disagree with, because Ubisoft did do the dirty with some of their employees. Some of the people who were accused were simply moved to another studio and another position. Those old complaints should be revisited, and you should speak to the people who lodged the complaints to give them closure, if nothing else. That's not the only thing that people are up in arms about with Ubisoft, because only a few weeks ago, you remember when we were talking about NFTs with companies like Take-Two and Square looking at NFTs? Well, Ubisoft were also interested in NFTs, if you recall, and they have officially announced Quartz, their own NFT platform for unique items in AAA games, and they're doing a test run in Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Breakpoint, where it's going to be integrated into the PC version of the game. Now, the NFTs in Quartz are called digits, and they will be used for in-game cosmetic items with unique serial codes visibly stamped on them. The serial-coded cosmetic can then be kept or sold with its previous ownership history logged. Fine, I understand the whole point of NFTs and stuff like that, but I still think they're a stupid thing. Really, 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 really stupid. If you're paying good money for something that is not real, that is just bits of data, and you think that that is a unique item within the entirety of the world, then I'm sorry, but there's something wrong with you. Especially if you let people take a screenshot of it and put it on the internet, because then everyone's going to see what you've got. And you might be the only person who can use that item within a game, but other people can take a screenshot of it and put it on a t-shirt and wear it around in public. Anyway, moving on to some interesting stuff that's been going on. Sony have revealed an 8K VR headset prototype, which, according to what they've said, is not related to the PSVR 2. This is not supposed to be a general consumer unit. It is more designed for engineering purposes, medical training, and manufacturing support, with some live entertainment. But this 8K VR helmet, it allows you to see fine detail with such clarity that it's pretty amazing from what we've seen of it. That said, hopefully we'll get some news about the PSVR 2 at some point soon as well. Anyway, Tencent have launched Level Infinite, which is their new publishing division, which aims to deliver high-quality games to a global audience. Level Infinite is going to operate from offices in Singapore and Amsterdam with staff located globally, and they're offering technical and production assistance as well as market research and assistance with esports integration. The launch apparently represents the next stage in Tencent Gaming's evolution as a global publisher and trusted brand. Phil Spencer has been talking to Edge magazine, and he said a number of things to them, some of which are good, some of which are a case of, I did not know that. According to one part of the interview, he doesn't envision a time when every Xbox user subscribes to Game Pass. In fact, quite the opposite. What he seems to be advocating is having a games library, but not being restricted to Game Pass just because it's on the console, but actually building a library that's curated to your interests and tastes in video games. And I'm all for that. That's basically how I built my library of games. He does also state that subscription models are a good continual revenue stream, but that's not the only thing he said, because he also talks about the Kinect, and a lot of people deride the Kinect now, but Phil Spencer believes it was one of the biggest contributions to gaming, because even though the Wii was out, and you had the Wii's control method and everything like that, the Kinect was a different proposition. It was basically full body motion capture in a video game console, and they used that for things like Just Dance and for exercise and all sorts of other stuff, and it was very successful. Not as successful as the Wii, but it was very successful in its own right. The thing about the Kinect, though, was that it allowed anyone to be able to play the game because it wasn't measuring how much grip you have in your hands or how long your legs were or anything like that. It was just based on how you moved your body in front of the Kinect. So in terms of accessibility, it led the team at Xbox down a new path, got them thinking about new things, how to do things, and that's really nice to see because it is reflected in their work. In another part of the interview, Phil Spencer also states that he has zero energy to spend on console wars and that he's more interested in helping the industry grow. It's nice to see that not everything needs to be so competitive in video games. I think Phil and Yoshi P from Final Fantasy XIV could be friends. So a few things just before we finish. There's been a tweet from Halo on Paramount about their new live-action series. A short teaser was posted on Twitter with the words that the trailer was going to be dropped during the Game Awards this year. I have to admit, I'm actually interested in the TV series. I do wonder how they're going to do it. Staying with Halo, Xbox has celebrated the launch day of Halo Infinite, and guess how they did it? Well, they only went and put a huge 6-meter wide piece of art that can be viewed by the public for the next week in London's Saatchi Gallery. The company commissioned an artist called Eva Troche to create the 6-meter by 3-meter painting, which is currently on display. The painting itself has been done in a Renaissance style, and it shows Master Chief engaging in a battle with his enemies. Now, my first question would be, why? My second question would be, why? My third would be a statement saying, that's actually really smart. And my fourth question would be, why? If anyone knows the answers to those questions, then leave us a comment below and explain it to me, because I'm really confused. But that's not the strangest piece of news from this week. An independent developer team called Ward B have accused the Russian gunmaker Kalashnikov of stealing some of their gun designs from one of their games, licensing those designs as their own, and then selling those designs to another game developer. And if that's what's happening, that is just mind-blowing. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you'd see in movies. I'll be honest, I'm not really sure how to process that entire chain of events, but apparently it started in early 2020 when Ward B, a studio made of former Call of Duty, Halo and Overwatch developers, was approached by Maxim Kuzin, a contractor from Kalashnikov, regarding the design of the EPM28 Mastodon shotgun from its upcoming first-person shooter, Oceanic. At the time, Ward B had been sharing images of the weapon's designs, including individual components, via social media to generate interest in the game and attract potential investors. In early 2020, Kuzin reached out to the studio's CEO asking for permission to turn the Mastodon into a real-life shotgun, or more specifically, a gun kit that could change the look of Kalashnikov's own MP155 shotgun. Now, according to IGN's own investigations, the design would potentially be licensed for airsoft and toy versions of the weapon, and Wardby would give the in-game gun Kalashnikov's branding. Kuzin apparently confirmed this to IGN, but said the discussions with Wardby were preliminary, while Wardby claims that they were happy with the idea and asked for the contracts to formalise the deal, but the contracts never arrived. Now, after that, there seems to be a lot of he said, she said stuff going on with a lot of toing and froing. It doesn't look like Wardby have basically pursued the legal case any further, but the whole thing about a weapons manufacturer stealing the design from a video game, basing their guns on the designs that they find in video games, is kind of disturbing. It's weird and kind of disturbing. Anyway, that's your lot for today. Let us know what you think about the stories that we've covered on this episode in the comments below. If you want to show your support, then we do have a Patreon, and you can find some exclusive content on there in the form of our Director's Lottery and various other things. So do check it out. I'll be back in a few days with another update on what's been happening in the world of video games. Hopefully some interesting things. But until then, thanks for watching.